Warning, this podcast is not vegetarian or vegan friendly.
Snorkers. Good-o.
Prick with a fork. 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 Prick with a fork.
Hello and welcome once again to Prick with a Fork. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, hello. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, then thank you for downloading. I'm your host, Duncan. This is the podcast all about sausages. We wang on and bang on about the great British banger and bangers from elsewhere. And can I just say, if you're new and you're one of our new subscribers on YouTube, firstly, thank you. And secondly, welcome. I really hope you enjoy what's going on here. What happens is when I don't talk about porkers, right, I talk about politics on places like GB News and also Talk. And sometimes we get into my hobby, which is kind of making sausages and eating sausages and sampling sausages. And they allow me to give a good old plug to Prick with a Fork. And whenever I do that, I end up with about a new 50 to 60 subscribers. So if that is you and you found us for the first time, it's great to have you on board. Do me a favor, if you know someone who likes this kind of stuff, if you know someone who loves their food, their grub, their scoff, love their sausages, that kind of stuff, do pass on details about Prick with a Fork. It is on Apple Podcasts, it is on Spotify, but YouTube is the place to be because you get all of these exciting pictures, you know, including my grandfather there behind me and various other things as well. So YouTube very much is the place to go. Please, whatever you do, if you can, share, subscribe, rate, review, because that really helps kind of like boost the profile of what we're doing here, which is the world's only regular podcast about all things sausage related. Now, I'm flying solo on this taste test. Normally my mate Roza is knocking around. If you want to check out more about Roza, then you can find him on the other podcast and also on the YouTube channel as we sometimes test sausages together. But he's off being glamorous, doing his proper job in various parts of the world, doing sports broadcasting. So it's me solo on this particular session. We're going to do something a little bit different now. I love all kinds of sausages, right? I'm a traditionalist. I like my pork. I like it with herbs. I like pork and spices and stuff like that. But I'm also broad-minded enough to occasionally want to explore different things. Now, the thing I'm going to test on this session is remarkably processed, okay? I'm not going to muck around. I like making my own sausages because I like knowing what's in there. Very few preservatives or chemicals. In fact, none really, apart from salt, which is a preservative. If you can't afford to make them or you haven't got the time to make them or the space, if you can afford it, get them from a proper butcher or farm shop because they will have less preservatives or chemicals in there. You know, it's a fact of life. Supermarket stuff, a little bit more preservative and chemical in there because it remains on the shelf for like a couple of weeks or whatever. I normally advocate making your own or getting them from a farm shop because they're healthier for you and not as heavily processed as the other stuff, but we're all realists, okay? Some of us are time short, we're money short or whatever. So this particular session, I'm doing something which comes in a jar. Right? It's not in a packet, it's a jar. And it's this. They are the Brooklyn Dino's famous big dog. Look at that big dog. Right? Now, these are serious hot dogs. They kind of try and convey, if you like, what it would be like if you were living in, I don't know, downtown New York and you went to a hot dog stall and had one of these. Now, you can get these, the Dino's brand, in two sizes. This, look at that, so big. This is the big size, right? These are about 7 to 8 inches in length. They do smaller ones, which are about 3 to 4 inches. But obviously I'm a big bloke. I've got a big appetite. I like big hot dogs. So these are the ones we're doing on this session. Dino's famous big dog hot dogs, but there are smaller versions as well in a jar, which is about half the size of this. But just look at this, all right? This is great. Aesthetically, this looks truly fantastic, I think. You stick it in your cupboard, you open up your cupboard, you look at that and you go, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want for my supper, my tea, my dinner. Look at that. Though, of course, there are smaller ones if you have a smaller appetite. But with most things in life, I like it big. And I mean, seriously, big dog. Dino's famous big dog hot dogs. That's what we're going to be sampling on this particular session. And I think we need to do this because it's something a bit different. And there's a couple of reasons why I think this is worth checking out. And I'll tell you what those are once we get into this podcast in a little bit more detail. If you can't see what I'm talking about because you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, another reason to subscribe to this YouTube channel because you can look at this marvelous jar. Now, you get 8 of these hot dogs in this jar. The jar cost me £4.95. You can get these from Tesco's. They do them, the big stores, Sainsbury's and Waitrose as well. £4.95. If my arithmetic is right, that's, hang on a sec, 8 fives? What is it? Hang on, 5 fives are 25. What's 8 into 50? I need my calculator. Hang on a second. That's so embarrassing, isn't it? At least I'm prepared to be authentic. I had to retake my GCSE in maths. So is it no wonder? So hang on. Well, let's just work it out. 4.95 divided by 8. 61p a hot dog. 61p a hot dog. They are big though. And they do come in this very sexy jar. Right. What do you need to know about the brand? Well, they're Beechwood smoked pork hot dogs. Okay. There's a lovely woody aroma that comes when you open up the jar. The ingredients, pork meat 75%, which is not too shabby. You got water, you got salt, you got spices, you got sugar, you got some stabilizers in there, preservatives, and Beechwood smoke. All right, these haven't been, properly smoked over Beechwood. It's not some geezer who's got his fire going. It's not that kind of thing. There's a flavoring. The Beechwood smoke is kind of like a flavoring. And there may be traces of mustard, celery, milk, and soy, according to this. Now, heavily processed, 75% pork meat. It's all right. Could be a lot worse. Remember, the legal requirement in the UK is 42%, which is why if you go for the budget brand beginning with R, that's what you're getting, 42% pork. That's all. Makes you wonder what the other 58% is. So this is 75% pork meat. Anything else you need to know? I won't tell you about the calories in it. I think life's too short for that. And it's the Brooklyn Big Dog, no roll big enough. Their website is dinosfamous.com, dinosfamous.com. Go and check it out, because they don't just do this, they do burgers and they do some other stuff as well. But they're kind of like trying to get this American flavour. Think of big yellow American cabs, big yellow taxi. Think of the steam rising out of the kind of the things on the pavement in New York in the films that you see. Think about that kind of stuff. Think about fat American policemen wobbling down Times Square. That's what they're going for. It wins awards. It's got a great taste emblem there, which you see on a lot of stuff. So it's not cheap and it's not tacky. Now, to cook these, the way to do it, and this is where it's slightly different. We talk a lot on this podcast about how to cook the perfect sausage. Some of you grill, some of you fry. I roast in the oven. With these, some people use air fryers, by the way. I've got a mate called Andy who does his sausages in an air fryer now and swears by them. These, you boil in water, okay? But actually, that's a lie. You heat them in water. It says very specifically on here, do not boil. And you should not boil, because in the past, I've not been keeping an eye on the hob. It has boiled. And what happens is the sausages, these hot dogs here, they split, right? And the meat comes out and it looks ghastly. It looks awful. It looks like someone's had an accident. So what you do is you put it in a pan of hot water, and you gently warm, no boiling, gentle heat, gently warm. So you don't want the bubbles coming up. You just want the pan of hot water to warm these for about 5 to 7 minutes. That's how you do it. Now, that's one of the good things about these, because if you are time short, and particularly if you've got kids and you need to sort out some kind of meal, this is a bit of a banker, because it only takes really about 5 or 6 minutes to actually heat these up in a way that they're ready to eat. So that's why I think it's always worth having a jar of these in your cupboard, right? The other thing is that they're not massively flavoured. They're a little bit beechwoody and a bit smoky, but nothing too harsh. So if you want to get your kids into sausages at an early age, and why wouldn't you, these are definitely worth having as well. But I think there's a couple of good reasons. One is the kids stuff. It's great for kids. You can have some of these, you can have some rolls, you can have some ketchup and some mustard, or you can just chop it into some pasta or whatever. Quick and easy meal. as I say, 5 to 7 minutes for these things to warm up. Once they're doing that, you can sort out your pasta as well. Really easy, really versatile. And if you're a bit Machiavellian as a parent and you want to get your kid into sausages sooner rather than later, I suggest you use some of these because kids love sausages, right? And remember, you can get smaller versions of this. You don't have to expect your 3-year-old to be chomping on a 7 or 8-inch hot dog. That's why I like these. Always have a jar in my cupboard. I suggest you do too. Tesco's, Sainsbury's and Waitrose, $4.95 for 8. We worked out earlier because my maths is shocking, 61p a hot dog. Now, as well as these being kid-friendly, they're also great if you've got a load of people coming round, right? You've got a load of people coming round. What can I do? Maybe you're going to watch the rugby, the football, or whatever you happen to do, or whatever, or watch a movie. I mean, do people still do that? Go around each other's places to watch films together? I don't know. But if you kind of feel that you ought to offer them something, what better than just having a load of these ready to go in a pan? They've been warmed. You can turn the heat off so they're still warm in the pan. Pair of tongs, a load of hot dog rolls, some pickles, mustard, ketchup, cheese, all of that jazz, some onions, and say, go and help yourself. And they can build their seriously big hot dog. And if you're having a load of booze, particularly as I tend to do, if people are coming to watch the rugby or I'm watching the rugby alone, a couple of these soaks up the old booze as well. So that's another reason to always have some Dino's Big Dog Brooklyn hot dogs in your cupboard. Now, I've got some here, and here they are. Look at that. Fantastic. They smell like a Cuban cigar. I think we talked about this before. You know, sometimes lovely Cuban cigars, you can just smell that Cuban leaf. It's a little bit like that. Though, of course, it doesn't smell like Cuban leaf. It smells like a hot dog. Look at that. Reasonably good consistency. I'm giving it a wobble, and it's not bending or anything. And you can probably just about see, well, I don't know, they're a little bit wrinkled, which means I probably just had them in the pan a tad too longer. But they are absolutely first class. Again, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and you're thinking, what are these things looking like? Get on the YouTube channel and subscribe. These are great. I can't get enough of these. I mentioned before the benefits if you've got kids and also if you're time poor and you need to do something. But they're not too shabby for something that is, there you are, remarkably processed. Look at that. It's a bit of consistency there. It's not all paste or whatever. It's got a nice crunch to it. Skins are quite soft, but firm. When you have that lovely beechwood smokiness coming through, not too harsh, not overpowering, and that can be a problem sometimes with smoked products and just overwhelm you. You know, it's like someone's got a bonfire going up your nostril. There's too much smokiness going on. Not with this. Subtle, good flavour, nice consistency. If you're watching on YouTube, it could be a cigar, couldn't it? Wah, 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 wah. Just imagine some of the great cigar smokers of our time, if they had a hot dog as opposed to a cigar. Winston Churchill. Who else? Hannibal. Was it Hannibal from the A-Team? That was on our TV sets in the 80s when we were kids. I love it when a plan comes together. Who else smokes cigars? I can't think of any other cigar smokers who are famous. But there you are. Just shows you how solid that is. Wah, wah, wah. Was it the Marx Brothers? Did they like cigars? Wah, 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 wah. Anyway, I digress. I'll just stop being an arse. These are great. I wanted to share them with you. Not a typical thing that we would necessarily have on Prick with a Fork, but we do like all things sausage related. And again, I like to make sure this podcast is as broad as possible. And particularly if you've got kids and you like sausages, I've already explained why you should have a jar of these in your cupboard, or if you just want to bribe a child who's really small, like 2 or 3 years old, to get them into sausages, I guarantee they will like this. What you can also do, and I used to do this when my kid was a lot younger, serve them with peas, right? So at least they get some vegetables in there. Just imagine a lovely plate of green peas, a couple of these, some tomato ketchup. Job is a good one. They're getting some greens as well. I'm going to have one more bite of this. I'm going to eat all of this. Then I'm going to play around with another one. just to try and entice all the people who listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to come over to YouTube, come over, join us over here where you can see things that maybe you never thought you would see. So just to recap, excuse my lack of manners, 8 of these, big jar, 7 to 8 inches, $4.95. They're kept in salted water. So when you buy them and you haven't opened them, keep them in the cupboard, right? Once you've opened them like I have, you need to put them in the fridge. And they say you've got a couple of days to use them up. I'll be honest with you, I put them in the fridge after I've cooked some, and I've had them 3 or 4 days later and been perfectly all right, because these are remarkably processed. But, you know, if you want to be careful and you're not sure, abide by the rules. In the fridge, use within 2 days. Well, let's see if we can do something funny. Too much weight at one end. And just another thought. If you have got kids, want to make a nice Saturday night event, you know, or whatever, really simple to do, isn't it? Some rolls, some of these, few sauces, let them fill their boots. You know, life's too short to feed your kid tofu. All right. So out of 10, because we do rate all of the sausages here on Prick with the Fork, this is difficult. Because basically one of these tastes like any other frankfurter that you might get. Okay, all of the supermarket brands do their own versions of hot dogs. You see them in packets mostly, not in jars. I haven't got the time or the inclination to go through all of them, but I am a sucker for a good brand. Dino's, Big Dog. So I'm just going to give this a judgment out of 10. I think the basis of having these kind of hot dogs that you can get, not just this brand, but other ones, are great, all right? You cook them in a slightly different way. You warm them through in hot water. You're not roasting them. You're not frying them or whatever. I think the basis of that kind of stuff is pretty good, right? So for me, that's a basic 5 or 6 for any kind of hot dog like this that you buy in a supermarket, particularly if it's got 75% meat in. Anything less, you know, you're taking a bit of a chance. But I like this brand. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10, because they are solid. They are big as well. I mean, a couple of these and you're pretty much full up, particularly if you're going to have a load of rolls with them and stuff like that. 8 out of 10. Get some. If you're not a greedy git like me, get the smaller one. You will need a bigger saucepan, though, for these ones, because, as I say, they are pretty big. I had to use my biggest saucepan in the kitchen, which I normally use for, like, making, chili or bolognese or a ragu or meat sauce or whatever, because their diameter is quite big. So you will need a big one, because to cook them properly, they have to be lying flat in the bottom of the pan. 8 out of 10. The Brooklyn All-American style Dino's famous Big Dog. Their website is, hang on a second, dinosfamous.com. Read all about them, and you can get them from Sainsbury's, Tesco and Waitrose. Thank you for watching. Just a reminder, please review, rate, share and subscribe this podcast so we can spread the sausage love.
Oh, we've got bangers and snorkers. I'm so in love with those porkers. Sizzle or fry, that's what I like. As long as it's real, you'll never butcher my pride. I love my blood sausage, whether black or white. I'm like a hot dog in mustard. Since a new way of stuffing I've discovered. Oh, Bratwurst is fine, Bratwurst delights. Cumberland rocks with an onion side. Salami, Boudin, Savoy, I'm a pig hog high, oh yeah.